Hi, Josh with American Hearts here. I want to talk to you today about something very important, an executive order that was passed a couple of weeks ago. You may have heard other folks talking about it. It's an executive order that has massive ramifications for not only everyday Americans, but also for organizations that are human services organizations that help marginalized communities like Black community, Latino community, other people of color, LGBTQ plus community, immigrants and refugees, communities that have been historically marginalized in the United States that need an extra helping hand. And this executive order has had a chilling effect on funders that help these organizations do what they do. And to the tune of millions and millions of dollars. There's one organization here in Seattle that I'm familiar with that's losing $5 million in funding this coming year because the philanthropic organization that funds them is concerned that they are going to be charged with terrorism and that their individual employees or trustees, the folks that work there, are going to be, the Justice Department will be coming after them because of this executive order. So, like I said, you may have heard other folks talking about this. It also impacts those of us Americans who hold particular views that don't align with this organization or this administration, and we could be deemed terrorists as well. So this is an incredibly important and really dangerous executive order, and this is going to be quite a long video, so grab a cup of coffee, tea, whatever you got to do, bookmark it, come back to it later. But this is some important stuff. I'm going to share with you some of the full text from this executive order so you can better understand it, and then we're going to talk about some of the ramifications of it and how it impacts impacts us and these organizations, as I mentioned. So the executive order was signed on September 25th, and it's called Countering Domestic Terrorism and Organized Political Violence. Now, on the face of it, that sounds pretty good. Countering domestic terrorism, cool, let's do that. Organized political violence, absolutely, all right? But it gets real creepy real fast. And I'm gonna start reading from it now. This political violence is not a series of isolated incidents and does not emerge organically. Instead, it's a culmination of sophisticated, organized campaigns of targeted intimidation, radicalization, threats, and violence designed to silence opposing speech, limit political activity, change or direct policy outcomes, and prevent the functioning of democratic society. A new law enforcement strategy that investigates all participants in these criminal and terroristic conspiracies, including the organized structures, networks, entities, organizations, funding sources, and predicate actions behind them, is required. So in this first paragraph, it sounds like a pretty normal executive order. We want to go after organizations who are fomenting violence. That sounds great. We have been doing that for years. The Justice Department has been doing that for years under various administrations. It sounds like this Justice Department wants to do the same. Now, where things shift is in this next paragraph. And this is not the next paragraph in the executive order, but it's 2 paragraphs down, but it gets to the heart of things. There are common recurrent motivations and indicia uniting this pattern of violence and terroristic activities under the umbrella of self-described anti-fascism. These movements portray foundational American principles, for example, support for law enforcement and border control, as fascist, to justify and encourage acts of violent revolution. This anti-fascist lie has become the organizing rallying cry by domestic terrorists to wage a violent assault against democratic institutions, constitutional rights, and fundamental American liberties. So far, this paragraph is focused mainly on the idea of Antifa. Anti-fascist, for short, is Antifa. And Antifa is not an organization, it's an ideology that many folks follow, can turn very violent, And, Antifa does a lot of things that I don't agree with. But so far, they're focused mainly on Antifa. But here's where it gets really kind of scary and horrifying. Common threads animating this violent conduct include anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, and anti-Christianity, support for the overthrow of the United States government, extremism on migration, race, and gender, and hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on family, religion, and morality. So this is where I take serious note, because what is anti-Americanism? What is anti-capitalism? What is anti-Christianity? The support for the overthrow of the United States government, that's pretty clear. What is extremism on migration? Extremism on race? Extremism on gender? Who's defining this and what does it mean? Hostility towards those who hold traditional American values on family, religion, and morality. Who's to define what traditional American values on these things are? I'm going to continue reading from this executive order. As described in the order of September 22nd, 2025, designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization, the groups and entities that perpetuate this extremism have created a movement that embraces and elevates violence to achieve political outcomes, including justifying additional assassinations. So here's where these two things come together. This idea that Antifa is an organization, it's not. It's an ideology. There's no CEO, there's no leader, there's no board of directors, there's no leadership structure. It's just people who call themselves Antifa and go out and do things, together. They organize in small groups and they go out and do what they do. This is not an organization. Now, the next piece of this is linking any ideology that is not traditional American values, right? Extremism on migration, extremism on race, extremism on gender, linking that to Antifa. And the idea that Antifa, who I would imagine, even I would agree that at times Antifa has done some things that have been very violent and could be considered terrorism. But this idea that ideas like race, migration, gender, that those somehow become terroristic and linked to Antifa, that's where this gets very scary, because now the Justice Department has something they can say, well, this organization is focused on race. Therefore, they are part of anti-fascism. Therefore, they are a terrorist organization. And yes, all they do is help people get fed, help people get clothed, help people keep the heat on in the winter, help people pay their rent, help people that are down, help the elderly, help LGBTQ plus people get mental health care, and help them get housed and fed, and help all these marginalized communities that need help. Now, those organizations can no longer get funded because the organizations that fund them, the philanthropic organizations, are scared about being labeled a terrorist organization or an organization that helps terrorists. And they are pulling funding from these marginalized, these organizations that help marginalized communities. This is totally insane. For years, conservatives, and if you're a conservative watching this, thank you. And I'm glad you're here, because I really hope that you hear this. For years, conservatives have said, these people need to go out and support themselves. They need to go in their own communities and help their own communities. We're tired of helping them. So what did they do? They did exactly that. They went out and created organizations, or they found folks to fund existing organizations that helped Black people, that helped Latino people, that helped Asian folks, that helped LGBTQ plus folks, that helped immigrants and refugees. They did it themselves, right? And they went out and got that funding, and they had organizations that helped these marginalized people just to live basic lives, non-violently, right? Not to do anything with politics, just to help people. People helping people. And now they can no longer get funded because the American government, Trump's government, has designated any organization that focuses on race, gender, or migration as a terrorist organization. Or they're trying to create that artificial link. And this is for real. Even if you might say, if you're a conservative or someone who doesn't believe in what I'm saying, you might say, oh, this is nonsense. That's not what that thing says. No, you're right. It doesn't say that exactly, but the outcome is the same as if it did. I have very close friends who are parts of these organizations, one of which is losing $5 million next year that helps one of these marginalized communities. And they are losing, the organization that funds them told them, we can no longer fund you because you help Black people. Because your charter is to help Black people. That's the reason. And this organization, as much as they want to fund them, they also don't want to go to jail or be labeled as a terrorist organization or have the individual members, employees, or trustees of these organizations be labeled as, helpers of terrorists and be attacked by the Justice Department. So it's this chilling effect that you hear, right? This idea that these instruments of chilling effects, they're not legal, they're not lawful, but it's threatening enough for these organizations to pull back money that are meant to help marginalized communities. So I want to get into some of these specifics and start talking through them. The first idea is that, anti-capitalism, right? Anti-capitalism was one of the first things that was mentioned as something that leads to this anti-fascist type deal. So anti-capitalism, there are plenty of people that are anti-capitalist, but what is really going on the left and in more progressive communities is that we're not anti-capitalists. A lot of us have jobs at big corporations and we have companies and we go work for companies. We're part of the capitalistic system. We understand that works. What we don't want is a government that is run by capitalism, a corporatocracy, I think they call it, where big companies like Amazon and very rich folks that run, oil companies and that type of thing have an outsized impact on the direction of our country. And that's exactly what's happening. I mean, both Democrats and Republicans are funded by big corporations. It's effectively a corporatocracy. That's what we're against. We're not anti-capitalist. We're for balance. But if I speak up against capitalism or against this, I'm labeled an anti-capitalist, and now I'm a terrorist, right? I'm a guy who has a podcast called American Hearts because I want people to act and think from their hearts, not their heads, and not to listen to all the nonsense on the news. Like, to just show up and be kind and accepting and loving and open and kind. But I could be labeled an anti-capitalist by the Justice Department and therefore a terrorist. So wanting poor and middle class to receive a living wage for a full day's work is not anti-capitalist, but that's the type of things that they would label as anti-capitalism. Wanting the poor and middle class to carry less of a tax burden. The big beautiful bill gave massive tax cuts to billionaires and people who make millions of dollars a year. And taxes are going up on some lower and middle class people. That's crazy. That's not anti-capital. It's not anti-capitalist. That's asking for fairness. People need to feed themselves and house themselves and afford medical care and just live basic lives. And we're going to tax them more so that we can give massive tax cuts to the ultra rich who are already hoarding money. That makes no sense. It's not anti-capitalism. It's just not. Being an anti-billionaire is not anti-capitalism. There's going to be great balanced capitalism without billionaires. We don't need multi-billionaires like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. We just don't. There's no need for it. There's no right for it. They should be taxed until they're not billionaires anymore. Or they should voluntarily give away their billions. Now, not when they're old and gray and about to die, but during their lifetime. But, Bill Gates is doing that. Others should follow. Socialist views are not a crime. Even if someone is completely anti-capitalist, not a crime. And it's not terrorism. There are plenty of socialists out there who believe that capitalism is nonsense. It's not a crime. It's a thought. It's a viewpoint. So this is an attack on freedom of speech. In addition to having the chilling effect, which is also an attack on the First Amendment, philanthropic organizations' right to fund the organizations that they align with, that's First Amendment. Freedom of speech through political donations or social justice donations or charity, whatever. So this is a blatant attack on the First Amendment. So is this idea that anti-capitalism is a terrorist, is linked to terrorism. Anti-Christianity. I don't know anybody who's anti-Christian. I know people who are anti-religion, who think that religion leads to wars and othering and etc. And religion can do great things. It can also lead to wars and othering and death if taken out of context. And so what people are these days, what I'm seeing is I am, and a lot of other people are, anti-Christian nationalists. Christian nationalists, and generally white Christian nationalists, are people that want to consolidate power for white Christian nationalists. They want to consolidate resources, consolidate power. They say that the United States is a Christian-based nation and we should put the 10 Commandments up in schools when there's a clear delineation between church and state in our Constitution. That's not okay. It's not okay in my book. Does that make me a terrorist because I am anti-Christian nationalist? I don't know. I'm saying it here very live and putting it out into social media for everyone to see. Is the Justice Department going to come after me because I'm anti-Christian nationalist? I don't know. Maybe, but that's not a crime. Support for the overthrow of the U.S. government. I'm just going to say January 6th. So I support that one. That was a terrorist. That was domestic terrorism and political violence. And there was one leader who fomented it and did nothing for hours while his supporters ravaged the Capitol. So yeah, support for the overthrow of the US government. I'm for going after people who actively, violently do that. And there's one person who's responsible there's lots of people who are responsible for that. There's one person who's responsible for pardoning all of them, those who pled guilty or were found guilty, many of whom were associated to the deaths of Capitol police officers. Now it's being turned around. And now it's being put onto progressives and liberals and Democrats. Now, those of us who consider themselves progressives and liberals are trying to overthrow the US government because we don't like that these types of things are happening. I'm standing up and calling it out, and I invite you to too. Extremism on migration. What is that exactly? Wanting to support the migrants who are here, wanting them to be treated fairly, wanting them to not be kidnapped by Gestapo-type police, masked police who don't identify themselves and just grab people off the street, throw them in the back of trucks, and take them to God knows where without due process. Fly them off to forever prisons in foreign countries where they'll never get out without due process because they had tattoos that President Trump says ties them to a gang that does not have tattoos as an identifying mark. Like, these are the types of things that just blow my mind. Extremism on migration. Extremism on migration is not what's happening from the progressive, liberal, democratic side. We want fair migration. We want human focused migration. We want human-focused immigration enforcement. We're not saying let every person in and let them run free forever. But we are saying do it with some heart. What we're doing now, this shock and awe and fear, it's cruel and unusual. Cruel and unusual. That's extremism on migration, what this administration is doing. Let's see, spending $110 billion through 2029, 10 times more than what we've been spending, and $45 billion of that going to construction and management of new mega prisons to house these undocumented folks who have been, most of them have just been living normal lives, going to work, raising families, looking after their elderly parents, looking after their children, or the elderly themselves. Like, these are just regular, normal people who, some of them have been here for decades. We spent $45 billion of our tax money that otherwise could have gone toward helping people with health insurance, helping people get fed, helping children have school lunches, human service things like basic human dignity programs. But no, we're going to put it toward mega prisons who are owned and run by Trump supporters. That sounds like extreme to me. Give me money, help me get elected. I will build a mega prison, or I'll fund a mega prison for you and give you $45 billion to do it. That seems pretty extreme. Oh my gosh, there's so much here. Extremism on race. Yeah, let's talk about this one. Financially supporting Black-led and Black-focused social service organizations is not extremism. It's kindness. It's kindness. Racially profiling and harassing Latinos simply because they have brown skin and an accent, that's extremism. And that's what's happening, racial profiling. These ICE agents are stopping American citizens or green card holders or people that have every right to be here and putting them in the back of cars until they can prove that they have the right to be here. Why? Because they have brown skin. Why? Because they have an accent. Why? Because they were looking for work outside a Home Depot. Or because they were in a park, enjoying the sunny day with their family. And ICE agents roll in. It's horrific and so cruel. This thing that happened in Chicago, where ICE agents descended from Black Hawk helicopters, came in and opened every door of an apartment building and insisted everyone come outside. Some of them were naked. Children were zip-tied to one another. Children. And of course, not everyone in this apartment building was undocumented. But those who had every right to be here and had brown skin were rounded up like animals until they could prove that they had the right to be here. Why? Because they had brown skin and they live in an apartment building where undocumented immigrants lived. If that doesn't disturb you, what does? What does disturb you if that doesn't disturb you? It's just completely unacceptable what's happening. And if that makes me a terrorist, so be it. If Pam Bondi wants to come to my house or come to my job and take me away because I'm a terrorist, because I have these views, that's what this executive order does. It puts a target on someone like me who's willing to stand up and say, this is not okay. And according to them, I have extremist views. That's probably Antifa, this evil, anti-fascist thing. And by the way, I am against fascism. And that's what this is feeling like. It's certainly authoritarianism. And if it's not fascism, I don't know what it is. Extremism on gender. What the fuck is that? Excuse my language. But seriously, what? Extremism on gender? This idea that it's extreme to want to support people who are questioning the body they're in and saying, I was born with a penis, but I do not feel like a man. I feel like a woman. That is, they call it gender dysphoria. That is what a therapist or a psychologist would describe it as. That's not wrong. That has been happening since the beginning of time. This is not a new phenomenon. Extremism on gender is not supporting trans folks in their journey of understanding and accepting who they are. Extremism on gender is not supporting families and kids, teenagers under the age of 18 who want to postpone puberty because the last thing they want as a kid who was born male was to develop breasts. Because they do not want breasts. Because they don't feel like the breasts are who they are. Right? Or a young, I think I might have said that opposite, a young male who doesn't want to develop a deep voice, who doesn't want to grow hair on their face because they feel like a female. There's nothing wrong with that. Psychologists have been looking at this for years, and yes, gender dysphoria is a thing, but it's not a bad thing. It just is. It's a state of being. That's not extreme to want to support and love and accept and be kind to these folks. What is extreme is being a president who in your first term insists that if a trans person wants to stay in the military, they have to get a diagnosis of gender dysphoria from a military therapist. That was Trump's first term. What's more extreme is that in his second term, he said, anyone with a diagnosis of gender dysphoria is out. So, A, if you want to stay in, got to get a diagnosis. B, you got a diagnosis, you're gone. No matter how many decades of honorable service you've given to our country, no matter how many lives have been saved because of the work you did, no matter what, that's extreme. It's not extreme to support and love and accept. It's extreme to try to erase trans people from the world. The reference to trans people has been removed from every government website. They still acknowledge lesbian and gay. And what do they say? They say LGB. So they acknowledge trans, gay, and bi. So it's okay if you're a man who loves a man, a woman who loves a woman, or if you're bisexual and you love any race. But it's not okay if you were born into one body and you feel like something else. Because why? Because Christian nationalists and Trump and others, they're not okay with it. So, and it's not okay to be yourself. That's extreme. Telling someone they are not okay with who they are. Hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on family, religion, and morality. How are we defining hostility? Is it hostile to tell a joke? Is it hostile to say Charlie Kirk was a racist, a bigot, transphobic, homophobic? Is it hostile to say that Charlie Kirk was not a true follower of Jesus? I believe all those things, and I'm saying them. And if that makes me an extremist, then so be it. If that puts a target on me for Pam Bondi and the FBI, Kash Patel, to come get me, so be it. It's not extreme. It's not extreme. It's a viewpoint. It's an opinion. People can believe whatever they want to believe about Charlie Kirk. I've seen some videos of Charlie Kirk that made me say, and it's probably the same videos that lots of conservatives who believe in Charlie Kirk and love Charlie Kirk say. I've seen some videos of him where I'm like, boy, that made perfect sense. That's great. But here's the thing. I've heard it said that the devil hides the lies in the truth. Charlie Kirk said a lot of things that were lovely and beautiful, and he praised Jesus Christ. He said all the right things, but he also said a lot of things that were racist, bigoted, misogynistic. And if you're one that doesn't believe me, do the research. Just Google it, go onto YouTube and search for videos, Charlie Kirk racism, Charlie Kirk bigotry, Charlie Kirk misogyny, Charlie Kirk transphobia, Charlie Kirk homophobia. You're gonna find all kinds of videos where he says some really crazy, harmful things. He was all of those things. Does that make me hostile toward him? Does that make me hostile toward those who hold traditional American views on family, religion, and morality? If it does, I'm happy to go all the way to the Supreme Court to defend myself. So, Antifa. We've talked about this before. There was a previous executive order that made Antifa a terrorist organization. But as we've discussed, it's not an organization, it's an idea. It's a movement. And the dangerous thing here is that if Trump or Pam Bondi or Kash Patel can link any of the things we've discussed, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, support or extremism on migration, extremism on race, extremism on gender, like if any of those things can be linked to this idea, anti-fascism, everyone's a terrorist. With the exception of those who maybe are MAGA. People who think like the president. Those are the only ones that are not terrorists. But the rest of us, we are all on the list. And the people who are paying the heaviest price are going to be the LGBTQ plus communities, the Black communities, the brown communities, the organizations that help these communities, the philanthropic organizations that raise money to help these marginalized communities who are no longer funding. Like, that's shameful, by the way. If you're an organization that has all this money and you're unwilling to stand up and defend yourself against this nonsense, I don't know how you sleep at night. I know you've got a lot of skin in the game. But companies and organizations are folding left and right because of this perceived power that this president has. But here's the thing, like, this is a house of cards, what Trump is building. It is based on such utter bullshit and nonsense and rhetoric, but no facts. Like, it's just garbage. It's garbage. And it's going to fall over. And the companies and the organizations that are bending the knee and capitulating will be held accountable. They'll be held accountable by the people. They'll be held accountable by future administrations. You know, they're all human. And that's the thing, like, Trump knows that if he can intimidate the people behind the companies and tell them that they're at risk individually, they're like, I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to lose my family. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to spend the rest of my life in court fighting the US government. And they're bending the knee. That's what authoritarians do. That's what fascists do. And this idea that anti-fascism, when you have a government that is acting like fascists, that's extremism. That's dangerous. And we need to stand up and do something about it. So there's one last piece that I've held for last. It was the first thing that was mentioned in this executive order: anti-Americanism. What the hell is that? Anti-Americanism. It's not anti-American to be anti-American. It's actually very American to be anti-American. We are a country with freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of movement. We are a country that prides ourselves on how free we are. And yet, this executive order is the opposite of that. It's constraining freedom. It's constraining speech. It's constraining philanthropic, charitable giving. It's constraining all kinds of things that used to be fine and that are not at all violent. Right? Being woke is not anti-American. Being woke is just being aware of what's going on in the world. What I'm doing right now is an act of wokeness because I am aware, I am alive, I am reading and I am understanding what's going on and I'm seeing the connective tissue between it all. That is being woke. And so is understanding that marginalized communities like the Black communities, people of color, LGBTQ+, immigrants and refugees, these are marginalized communities that need our help. They need the help of white, cisgendered, straight people because they've been marginalized by white, cisgendered, straight people. And that's exactly who's behind this executive order. White, cisgendered, straight people. That's who this is about. Being anti-billionaire is not anti-American at all. America is at its best when wage and wealth disparity is not at such a extreme. Like, those are the days when America was great in an economic sense, when the unions were strong. I know unions have dug their own graves in many respects. Union leaders have pushed for things that are they've made it impossible to work with sometimes. I know that, and I truly believe in unions. I believe in the ability of people to stand up and organize together, because that's the only way workers have any leverage with their employers. Unions are the reason we have a middle class. And, billionaires are not our saviors. Elon Musk is not going to save anybody but himself. When the world's burning down, he's going to close the gates. No one else is getting in. He doesn't care. He's got his 14 kids and his however many wives or whatever they are, partners, which, by the way, is totally cool. Is that anti-American? Is that anti-American values? Is that gender ideology? I don't know. It's probably, I'm guessing he's fairly misogynistic, but it's an alternative lifestyle. Why isn't anyone going after his alternative lifestyle? Well, because he's straight and he's white and he's cisgendered and he's conservative. So none of the conservatives are going after him. They love him because they gave him what they want, a smaller government. Being anti-MAGA and anti-Trump is not anti-American. But guess what? It's exactly what Trump is trying to say here. Anti-American is anti-MAGA. Anti-American is anti-conservative. Anti-America is anti-Trump. If you don't believe in what the great leader says, then you are against the country. Because Trump believes he is the country. Trump believes he is the supreme leader. Trump believes he is king. He jokes about being a king. Maybe people do need a king. That's our president. But then he says he's not a king. But he's certainly acting like one. Destruction of the First Amendment. That's anti-American, guys. Stifling the media. ABC, CBS. Who else capitulated? Maybe CNN. There's plenty of others. But the media, the mainstream media, has capitulated. They've paid off massive lawsuits in order to get, corporate mergers and deals done, to get FCC approval. And they've lightened their scrutiny of a authoritarian, nearing fascist leader. They were just telling the truth, guys. It wasn't ideology. They were reporting on what was happening, and what is happening is authoritarianism and anti-Americanism. This president is anti-American. Shutting down the First Amendment is anti-American. Bringing colleges under your heel and stifling their freedom of speech, anti-American. Bringing law firms under your heel, having them stop their assistance, their pro bono work to organizations that truly need it, that help marginalized communities. This is a very similar thing to what's happening in this executive order, by the way, what happened to the law firms. The law firms were helping marginalized communities and going against Trump's wishes, and Trump brought them to their knees and had them commit to dedicating pro bono legal services to things that Trump believes in. The same pro bono legal services that otherwise would have gone to marginalized communities that truly need them. So now Trump gets what he wants and marginalized communities suffer. That's who this president is. And now, anyone who funds organizations that help these marginalized communities, they're terrorists. They're anti-American. Me, a podcaster, someone with opinions, who cares for people, who just wants the world to love each other, to care for one another, to act with kindness and humility, to do what's right for our fellow man, to allow people to live their lives in freedom and peace, to allow people to be and express who they are. I'm a terrorist, according to this president, according to this executive order. So if you're still watching, I thank you for sticking around for this long. And I ask you to stand up. Stand up and speak out. Do the self-care that you need to do. And this is, by the way, I'm saying this to myself as much as I'm saying it to you, because I need to do a massive amount of self-care and internal work to deal with the fear and anxiety that's coming up around this administration and the loss of our rights, the loss of other people's rights, mainly the loss of other people's rights. I mean, I'm a white, cisgendered, male American citizen. There's not much that can happen to me other than being labeled a terrorist. But the people that are really suffering are those who are not white, who are not cisgendered, who are not straight, who are not American citizens. Those are the people who are really suffering. And I ask you to look into your heart and say, like, are those people worth fighting for? Because they're not those people, they're us. They're us with a different skin color. They're us with a different prerogative on who they love. They're us with a different sense of their gender. They're us who were born elsewhere, who came here for a better life experience for their kids and themselves. They're us. It's not us and them. It's not those people. It's us. They are us. We are we. All of us are in this together. That is what makes America great. So please stand up and speak out. Do the self-care you need to do, like I do, to stand up and speak out and be heard. You know, put yourself on the line. I'm putting myself on the line with this video, and that's okay. I trust I'm going to be okay, no matter what. No matter what. And stand up and go to the No Kings rally on October 18th. Just 9 days away. Today is October 9th. Well, I guess tomorrow, by the time you see this video, is probably the 10th. So it's coming up. But get to No Kings Day rally. We need to see tens of millions of people in the streets, in the parks, out there saying that enough's enough. That it stops now. There's a study that was done that shows that if 3.5% of the population, which in the United States is somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think, 12 million, if 12 million of us show up, the government can't say no. Historically, governments in the past have experienced that. That's the threshold, that's the tipping point. And we were not far from that in the last No Kings rally. There were 8 to 10 million people is what I heard. So we're not far from that tipping point. Get out there, stand up, speak out. You don't even have to say anything. Just show up and be in the crowd. Be counted. Talk to your friends, talk to your family. If you're in a red state, if you have a Republican lawmaker, reach out to them, tell them what you're seeing is not okay, and encourage them to stand up. Because Republican lawmakers, most of them don't agree with what's going on, but they're bending the knee like everybody else because they're scared. Maybe there's political leverage that the president has against them, maybe, who knows. They're certainly afraid of losing their seats. But if enough of their constituents stand up and say, this has to end, they will start to listen to their constituents. So stand up, have a voice, show up at rallies, do what you can. I'm doing everything I can. I literally am doing everything I can. I'm only doing these videos every couple of weeks because it takes me that long to do the self-care that I need to do to show up. And tonight I had the energy to do it. I had the time to do it, and here I am. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful to have been born in this country. I'm grateful to have experienced it. I'm grateful to have been raised in a family that taught me the values that I'm now espousing to you. I'm grateful to be in a country that's still free. But I'm watching those freedoms erode, and I'm really, really tired of watching them erode. I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired of feeling vulnerable. I'm tired of feeling like this is the end of democracy. So I'm standing up, and I invite you to do the same. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for standing up with me. If you agree with me on this video, if you disagree with me on this video, if you want to talk, reach out. I want to hear from those of you who disagree with me. I want you to comment on my video, on these videos, because I want to engage in open dialogue. That's the only way we're going to get through this. And the one last thing I'll say is treat each other with humanity. Stop labeling other people. I mean, it's one thing to say somebody's a fascist when they're acting like a fascist, but like, go easy on that when it's just MAGA folks out there in the world. Ask them questions. Ask them to share their viewpoints on things. Ask them if they're willing to hear your viewpoints on things. Like, that's what we need more of. We need more dialogue and less name calling. Dehumanizing and name calling is what's got us in this mess on both sides. We just got to show up for one another, because we're all in this together. No matter which way, no matter which side of the hill the boulder rolls down, whether it's toward authoritarianism or fascism or back toward democracy, we're still all in this together. And the same people today who believe in this president may be the ones tomorrow who are suffering under him, or another leader like him. And today, they made, in my opinion, they're just misguided. They've been fed a constant stream of lies from not only this administration, but from the conservative news media, from Fox News, from One America News, from Newsmax, Drudge Report, you name it. Like, a constant stream of lies and misdirection and, this ecosystem that feeds on itself. One person says something, another person says something, another person says something, and now all of a sudden it's the truth. None of them are based in any facts, but enough of them are saying it that they're like, oh, it must be true, and then they believe it too. Even the people who are saying it, the commentators. I mean, some of them know it's BS and they're doing it to make money. The liberal news media has done the same thing in some ways. It's not the end. Or it's just the conservative side is not the only one to blame, but like, we as the people need to stand up and say enough's enough. And get back to kindness, get back to love and acceptance. All right, now I'm gonna end this video. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being a part of the solution. Thank you for standing up. Reach out to me if you need help. Reach out to me if you don't know how to do the self-care that you need to do. Reach out to me if you're scared, if you're feeling vulnerable. I want to help. I will help. Consider me a resource and an ally. Thank you. I love you all. God help us all. And may God help us here in the United States of America. Until next time.